Тут бляха-муха, заставочка говно. И фильтры аудиопотока надо сделать чуть тише, а то громко мне, да? А еще эхо, да. Так, лимитер вот такой, усиление пониже. Что туда надо замутить? Все? И фильтры аудиопотока надо сделать чуть тише, а то громко мне, да? А еще эхо, да. Так, лимитер вот такой, усиление пониже. Что туда надо замутить? Все? И фильтры аудио. Кайф, да? У меня, да? Сейчас кайфов должно быть, правильно? Что туда надо замутить? Все? Кайф. Ладно, пофиг. Пам-пам-пам-пам-пам-пам-пам-пам. По сути, все. Все.
Last time around, and Max almost took the lead, but does he really want some kind of mighty outlap on these tyres?
Did it not work to his disadvantage the time before?
I think it probably did, but let's see. Max is not very good at going slowly, is he? But it's if he wants track position, maybe he needs to give it full beans around this lap. But we'll surely see Ferrari having to react next time around.
Well, they are. Box is the instruction that's come out from Ferrari to Charles Leclerc. So let's look at Max Verstappen's sector times as he's going round. He's giving it as much beans as he possibly can without overdoing it on the tyres. Now, a little purple mini sector has popped up just before turn 10. Leclerc's behind Daniel Ricciardo coming down the back straight at the moment as Esteban Ocon makes his way into the pits. Charles Leclerc continues to lead, but he's going to come for his second stop any moment now.
Verstappen's got a clear lap, but he's not getting any DRS assistance from back markers. If we get down to 80 kilometers per hour, 50 miles per hour, put it on the rev limiter, and then he got to spot the pit box absolutely perfectly.
Verstappen's halfway down the straight that leads to the final two corners. Ferrari, nice slick time, 2.5 seconds.
Sweet.
Well done to the crew for that one. Verstappen's round the final couple of corners. He's powering his way down the main straight. You can see him there. Charles Leclerc finally freed of the 80 kilometers an hour pit lane limiting speed. Is back out onto the track, and the Ferrari fans absolutely love that because he's still in the lead. Now he's got to warm up his tyres a little bit, and Verstappen might just be coming at him for the next few corners, but this is a lot better for Leclerc after the second stop than it was for the first stop, and it looks like Ferrari made the reacting straight away. Sainz leads, right call. Sainz leads from Perez. Leclerc still ahead of Verstappen.
Some Ferrari fans there in the Verstappen quarter in the grandstand. Brave. Not that we see any kind of nasty stuff in our grandstand.
Not at all.
But,
Я не знаю, потому что откуда столько людей? Потому что откуда столько людей может быть? Там меня смотрело 110 человек сейчас в последний момент. 110 человек — это довольно много.
He's been told to protect the tyres and wasted the chance to get in the lead.
This is Lewis Hamilton on the Alpha Tauri of Pierre Gasly into turn one. Hamilton back up into 7th place. If Verstappen's angry now, Martin, I know you're doing the post-race interviews today. Don't tell him that his second pit stop was half a second slower than Charles Leclerc.
Is it?
Yeah. And if you do tell him, make sure you're a sensible distance back.
Max is piling in some sector times now as well, and but nowhere near as quick as Leclerc's middle sector, and Leclerc really fast through the exit as well. So the gap then is 2.2 seconds, well out of DRS. This looks cozy.
Hamilton on Kevin Magnussen. He dispatched Pierre Gasly, and he's now got Kevin Magnussen and the Haas in his sights. Hamilton, who has stopped twice in this race. Magnussen, who's only stopped the once, as has George Russell, Hamilton's teammate. And with DRS, Hamilton blasting past the Haas, down the straights, riding the bumps, and there are quite a few bumps down that straight, to put himself into the top 6, which might be Hamilton's ambition for this race, because certainly the Ferrari and the Red Bulls look way out of sight for Mercedes.
Yeah, but Hamilton's been, they left Russell out on the hard compound tyres, and Hamilton's been up to 3 seconds a lap faster.
Yeah.
You're not very long before you've won yourself a pit stop back at that kind of pace.
And we'll see how easy it was for Lewis Hamilton. Magnussen struggling a bit on the soft tyres that he's running at the moment. He'll have the mediums for the end of this race. And Haas just left him out a little bit too long, I wonder. Meanwhile, Sergio Perez, there he is, still out on the medium tyre, and well, he's getting a bit closer to Carlos Sainz once again, but you just wonder, how much longer do they leave him out?
You are free to push, Max, free to push.
I was going to say maybe to interfere a bit with Charles Leclerc, but that's not going to be the case. Perez is just following Carlos Sainz in. So Perez to make his stop. Medium tyres go on for Carlos Sainz. 0.2 of a second difference between the two pit stops there in Ferrari's favour. So they'll come out line of stern once again and behind the Williams.
Yeah, Williams in the way as well as they head down to turn one. Probably a bit unkind to say in the way, but the Williams is not as fast as the two cars fighting over third place in this Grand Prix.
George Russell finally gets to make his pit stop. Just wondered there, they brought Sergio Perez in to cover off Carlos Sainz. Could they have left him out? Would the overcut have worked for him on that particular occasion? Because he was getting close to Sainz, but not close enough. Could he have just gone that little bit longer? Other way, he's come back out on the soft compound tyre.
Yeah, and Russell's out on the medium tyre, is he? Or is that what you were just saying?
No, I said that Perez on the soft.
Yeah, I think Russell's on the medium. So, yeah, let's see what he can do with those. So he's pitted some 5 laps later than his teammates, 6 laps later than Lewis Hamilton.
So as it stands then, out in front is Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, from Max Verstappen, Red Bull. Ferrari in third, Carlos Sainz. Sergio Perez for Red Bull runs 4th. Hamilton and Magnussen run 5th and 6th. After that, Russell pit stop. Russell runs 7th, ahead of Bottas, Joe and Gasly. That completes the top 10. Into the pits comes Daniel Ricciardo for a second stop, and we head down to 10.
I want to go back after the race, Crofty, and look through the lap times to see how much slower Max Verstappen was going on those out laps compared to how much quicker he could have gone, because I mean, he's never really one to pay too much attention to his engineers, is he? And even though that kind of, you know, slight sort of tantrum in a way that, you know, I could have gone so much faster, I'm not sure the lap times will really support it. And looking down towards the Red Bull pit wall, they would have told him surely if he had a good chance, and he would have seen, he wouldn't have known, of course, the Ferrari had a good pit stop, would he, Max Verstappen? But he would have seen, of course, the gap in front of him, how far Leclerc was in front of him. So I guess he was in a good place to know in the pit stop, in the car after the pit stops. But yeah, I think the mood on the Red Bull pit wall will be afterwards to tell him, look, however more quickly you would have gone, you wouldn't have been able to get closer to him. But yeah, it was an interesting radio message nonetheless, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Never ever listening to anything you say ever again, Dad. I've heard that before from the kids.
Magnussen stops, gets out ahead of the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly. They've both stopped twice now.
And we've had track limits at turn 4.
So track limits are being monitored, and if you are a serial offender on that one, as Gasly gets past Magnussen on the hard compound tyre as opposed to the mediums and a little bit more warmed up. Once again, if you are a serial offender, you will be shown a black and white flag, and you might just get yourself a penalty as well.
Yeah, you get 2 warnings, and then they start waving things at you, and then you're in trouble. But their drivers have been well behaved, haven't they, generally speaking? Yeah,
no need for the stewards to intervene other than the 5-second penalty for Esteban Ocon that he got for his tangle with Mick Schumacher on the opening lap. As we head into turn 11, Kevin Magnussen trying to fight back at Pierre Gasly. If you're just joining this race and you've missed some of the action and you're a Sky Q or a Sky Glass customer, press your red button and you can watch the highlights of the race alongside the live action. And we've also got on boards as well with Lewis Hamilton, George Russell and Lando Norris, who are currently running 5th and 6th, and in the case
Российские вооруженные силы никаких ударов по...
he's extending it away.
Yeah. He's had the legs, hasn't he? Other than that sort of when he was vulnerable to DRS and slipstream, he's had the legs in this race to keep Max Verstappen at bay.
We're on board now with Kevin Magnussen once again, and it's Joe Guan Yu that he manages to pass on this occasion. The Haas making its way through the field, and I repeat, it's lovely to see Haas starting to do well, running the points. You know, at one stage, this was a team, you know, that were scoring 5th place finishes, that were right up there with an awful lot of potential, but it's been some very lean years, and Magnussen, in fact, was the last driver, I think, to actually score points for the Haas team, wasn't he? Hungary 2020, wow. Came 10th.
Joe Guan Yu, he's driving a nice race, isn't he, for his first ever Grand Prix? He's kept it tidy.
He stopped only once, so he'll drop out of the top 10 when he makes his second pit stop, but no complaints, I don't think, on that one. Magnussen, this is Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon.
Oh my God, that's getting aggressive to me.
Albon trying to keep away. But, yeah, you're right, that was a little bit close for comfort. I think Sergio Perez starting to struggle a little bit on the soft compound tyres as well. He had a bit of pace, was catching up Carlos Sainz. His lap times have started to fade away, looking good for a Ferrari 1-3 as it stands.
20 seconds covering the top 4. And then the 2 Mercedes as ever. I mean, it bodes well once you get that car sorted out. Hamilton and Russell are very close on pace. A lap lap times as we've seen, but actually Magnussen's starting to catch them now.
He's just set a personal best, Kevin Magnussen. He's about 16 seconds behind. Esteban Ocon's going to go for it against his teammate Fernando Alonso. I think just keeps out of the way and makes that move a little bit easier for Ocon to take a point and then go and chase after Joe Guanyu and Pierre Gasly. In fact, Joe Guanyu has just pitted. So Magnussen up to 7th after the pit stops. And Ocon will move up into 9th, Alonso in the points in 10th. So it's a good race for the opening race of the season for Ferrari. Great race for the opening race of the season for Ferrari. Good race for Red Bull. Decent race for Haas, or a good race for them too. If Gasly scores points for AlphaTauri, they'll be pleased with that. Alpine will be pleased with a double points finish. But there's a few teams that will wander away from Bahrain thinking, no, that was not a good night for us. This was Ocon getting past Alonso a couple of moments ago.
Slipstream, his teammate kept his head calm in the braking zone. Felt the need to do a little jink at the top of the hill to put his teammate off from having a run back at him. But once again, those two pretty even on performance. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Aston Martin and McLaren are going to leave pretty unhappy, aren't they, with the way it's gone for the qualifying and the race.
Absolutely. Just as you said that, we saw the Aston Martin getting past. It's not been good for them at all. Valtteri Bottas making his way past Lance Stroll. Andrew Green, their chief technical officer, saying that they've been suffering porpoising issues. Not really seen much of that in this race because teams have put in a car setup to try and dial out the porpoising issues, but he said we've had to raise the ride height. It's costing us around about 3/4 of a second a lap. We just can't get it any lower.
Yeah. And that you throw away huge amounts of performance with a ground effect car. If you lift it up, I think we're seeing a lot of that going on. You've got to set the car up for the race in qualifying as well.
Yeah. But the thing is, Martin, it is not the work of a moment to change the fundamental aerodynamic philosophies of this car. That was a bit slow getting away for Lance Stroll. It could be, 4 or 5 races, arguably, before they can put a fix in.
Yeah, and then you've got to make all the parts, keep attending the races, do it all within the budget cap, or the cap of the budget you've got available to spend.
That's the thing, if you're trying to make too many parts, then you quickly get to the limit of that budget cap as well.
Handsome looking car, isn't it, that Aston Martin? That's new, isn't it? We don't often see Formula 1 drivers trying to weave and warm their tyres up. That's going to be a feature of the year as they exit the pits.
He was on his own. He was entitled to do it because there was no one around him. We're on board with Yuki Tsunoda. Fernando Alonso is the car in front. Fernando Alonso's on the hard compound tyre. Tsunoda is on the soft compound tyre. He would dearly like to score points here in Bahrain for the 2nd year running. And to do so, he's going to have to get past Fernando Alonso here and make his way into the top 10.
Yeah, and you can see there in the AlphaTauri, he didn't really have to fight the steering wheel too hard in the slipstream of the Alpine. And past he goes.
Fernando rather accepted that one as well, but he will hope to try and slipstream his way to a point where he can get past the AlphaTauri going into turn 4, but that might be even beyond Fernando's capabilities. Even with DRS, he's not within striking distance, so Tsunoda hangs on to 10th place.
Yeah, Fernando's not had a great race car, has he? He's been under pressure from his teammate all the way through, and now just slips out of the points.
The top 3 then separated at the moment by round about 18 seconds as we watch Yuki Tsunoda once more. Nicely done. Yeah, 18 seconds, 4 of which are the gap between Leclerc and Verstappen, who's just... Well, he's backed off a bit to maybe try and close in again. Perez backed off a bit to maybe try and close in on Carlos Sainz once again, which does point to Red Bull, both Red Bull drivers, maybe struggling the same with their brakes overheating and not being able to run as close as the new regulations would allow.
Yeah, they've gone a bit skinny on the cooling, haven't they, especially when you get close up to another car. We expected to see plenty of that, but at the moment, the brakes appear to be coping with it right through the field. Still got 20 runners, and of course, as your fuel load lightens, as you move towards the closing stages of the race, then your brakes are taking less of a pounding. But what's happening? I think the cars are quite slow through the slow corners. We know they're slower in slow corners, faster in fast corners, and that means you're braking hard and heavy for a long time to decay the speed into the slow corners, into the apex of those hairpins.
And every time Sergio Perez gets to about 2 seconds behind Carlos Sainz, I'm sure some bright spark on the radio says, "Carlos, old chap, would you mind just putting your foot down a little bit more?" And Carlos responds with a decent lap. And on this particular lap, he's put in a 1:36.7, and Sergio Perez has put in a 1:37.6, and the gap has gone up to 2.8 seconds. So Carlos can sing Sade songs and relax just a little bit more. Ted, down to you.
Crofty, Martin, should we have a game of I told you so with Max Verstappen's lap times after the stop? So with a little help from my friends here in Bahrain and back in the UK, we've got the times on the out laps. And what it shows is that Verstappen's first out lap was 0.2 of a second quicker than Leclerc's first out lap. And then Leclerc's second out lap was almost a second actually quicker than Verstappen's out lap, so on the second pit stops. But that reflects Leclerc's quick pit stop time, doesn't it? And so the big question really, so the conclusion really is that Max might be mistaken and that he did do quite a quick out lap anyway, and if he could have gone quicker, it doesn't look like he could have gone too much quicker based on his current best sector times as well. Of course, the one remaining question was the is Max right question in the is Max right game, is how quick does Max think he could have gone on those out laps? And that, I guess, we'll find out by talking to him after the race. But at the moment, the evidence doesn't suggest that Max is right, that he could have easily been in the lead.
And even if he'd have got into the lead, I just wonder if he'd have kept the lead. Ferrari seemed to have had the better race pace here tonight. And I know there's been moments where Max has tried to make the overtake, but Leclerc's looked pretty much in control for me.
He has, but the Red Bull's clearly been classed faster in a straight line just by itself, hasn't it? Then you add in the goodies of DRS and slipstream. But then the DRS then saved the day for Ferrari back up to turn 4, and some pretty feisty driving from Leclerc there to make sure he maintained track position. The McLaren rocking around on the rear jack. Looks like that needs a bit of work.
So at this opening race of the season, with a near 5-second gap between himself and Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc might just be thinking to himself, oh, could have done this before. Engine didn't really treat me very nicely on that particular occasion. Just want to keep everything together. I don't want anything mechanical to go wrong. I want a nice, smooth ending to this race.
And we have less deck than Verstappen.
That's the sort of thing he wants to hear. It's turning into, almost, Martin, redemption night for Charles Leclerc in Bahrain.
So far, but it was quite late in the day when he lost this race back in 2019. Deg, of course, means degradation if you're in the tyres, losing grip and performance if you're new to Formula 1. And if you are new to Formula 1, welcome. And we thought we might get a few issues with pit stops, and McLaren showing there that it's not necessarily easiest. Oh, look at this, Verstappen coming into the pits for a late pit stop. Puts him behind Sainz then, doesn't it?
It certainly does, because Sainz has just gone through. Sergio Perez coming into the pits as well. You can just see him right in the background. It's a double late pit stop here for Red Bull, which basically means Verstappen can now go and chase after Carlos Sainz, and Perez will have a bit of ground to make up on Carlos Sainz as well. They've been struggling maybe with a bit more deg. Ferrari saying we're getting less deg than Verstappen, and they have switched it to a 3-stop strategy because they feel they have nothing to lose, especially by bringing both drivers in right at the end.
And they know that should they get up behind Carlos Sainz, the straight line speed advantage they've got, and add a bit of tyre, or quite a bit of tyre into that now as well, should be easy.
Mate, my steering wheel is suddenly very heavy. Oh my god, it's almost locked.
What was that?
Absolutely no idea, but something about being very happy, and I'm sure he will be if he can get back into second or even first. Just to let you know, Lewis Hamilton has passed Sergio Perez. Ted, down to you.
Are they going to tempt, a Red Bull going to tempt Ferrari into reacting? No sign yet. They've got to make up their minds quickly, Ferrari. Do they react, or do they try and hold on to hold off a Red Bull on new tyres at the end? Oh, what a great twist.
I think Carlos is coming in. I think Carlos Sainz might be coming in for Ferrari. Certainly not Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz is coming in for Ferrari. Verstappen is in trouble out there, and GP is trying to just keep him a little bit calm.
I wonder if he's got a loose wheel or something. Verstappen.
Is it vibrating? Is that the issue?
Somebody's going, he's mentioning the steering, so he's got a box. Is that a terminal issue there for Red Bull? Or could it be something, mind you, normally if the wheels are a little bit loose, they fly off pretty quickly. But dramatic times then for Red Bull.
So Hamilton comes in as well, which now is going to rejig the order, and a race that was meandering along quite nicely to a Charles Leclerc victory might just have a few more twists and turns between now and the checkered flag, as through goes Hamilton and out, through goes Russell, and now out comes Lewis Hamilton. Leclerc leads from Verstappen, from Sainz and from Perez. Then comes Russell, Hamilton and Magnussen. But these extra pit stops have just caused a little bit of tension down in the pit lane.
Max has just done a fastest first sector of anybody in the Grand Prix so far, which doesn't tally with we've got a box, but maybe I misunderstood that message.
Very difficult to pick it out clearly, and we apologise for not being able to hear it too quickly up here in the commentary box. The gap, 25 seconds. Here we go again with Max.
Max, is the wheel heavy in both directions, so both left hand and right hand?
Everywhere. It's not even smooth. Like I have to, not even on the straight.
Well, he's going to slow down because we're going to get a safety car here, because Pierre Gasly's Alpha Tauri has overheated and has caught fire. The marshal straight on there with the extinguisher, but that is a very, very hot Alpha. The virtual safety car has been thrown, so not the safety car, the Mercedes safety car, the GT that will bunch up the field, but a virtual safety car that will keep the field pretty much in the stations that they were before.
Now, providing this full safety car yeah, full safety car now. So providing then they should better press a button and get, but is the car safe to approach with the battery? Is the battery in a safe state to approach the car?
So Leclerc being told to box. He is about halfway round the lap. They need to box him because those behind have just pitted already.
Yeah, and it'll be a cheap stop then, won't it, for Leclerc? It'll cost him a lot less time while the others are going slowly out on track. But of course then he needs the tyres. He needs the tyres for the restart behind the safety car. But meanwhile, it seems as if the power steering on Max Verstappen's car is giving him a lot of variability in terms of the load that he's feeling.
Which, if it is a software issue, they'll try and fix it. If it's a hydraulic issue, there's not much chance of doing that. Pierre Gasly's night coming to an early end. Real disappointment for him, and we can see, Martin, what happens through turn 2 we go.
Yeah, it's a complete power failure. Look, from his dashboard's gone completely, so it's not an engine blow. And you can't dip the clutch because you've got no power to do that with. And yeah, they're going to need to be careful how they approach that car to make sure it's in a safe state. It was a little orange lights, wasn't there, yeah, on the indicator, no red lights on it.
So Charles Leclerc did pit, as you can see, and is coming back out and will retain the lead of the race. But that 5-second gap that he had is going to disappear.
Yeah.
The big gap between Verstappen and Sainz is going to disappear. The gap between Sainz and Perez is going to disappear. And Hamilton and Russell brought back into the equation as well, because they both managed to pit. Kevin Magnussen has stayed on the medium compound tyre.
just keep checking what it can be. If something is stuck or whatever.
Yeah.
So he will not be on a new set of tyres. Ted, down to you.
It just must be something that happened in the pit stop. They're not looking particularly confident about it on the Red Bull pit wall because the mechanics came out into the box ready to receive Max Verstappen again. Of course, he's gone round again, and it's just have Lando Norris in for another time, and the McLaren under the safety car. So the Red Bull mechanics gone back into the garage. So it doesn't look like something that's able to be fixed quickly in the pits. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have pitted him. But yeah, how do these issues? I mean, you would have thought, Martin, perhaps hydraulics, but it must be something at that stop that initiated it.
Yeah, it's going to be hydraulic with the power steering. And now finally with the safety car then picks up the leader of the Grand Prix. And
Has to put the brakes on.
Yeah, so normally with Max's the car about.
So Magnussen makes his pit stop as well, so that puts him on a fresher set of tyres, so he's not at a disadvantage at the start. So the field will now bunch up behind the safety car. Bernd Maylander once again at the wheel of the safety car. When they're all bunched up and when Pierre Gasly's car, the only car to retire from this race so far, and we're on lap 47, when that car is cleared away.
Okay, Max, so steering update. We are staying out. We don't believe it's a reliability concern at this stage. We can go through it a bit later.
So you're just going to have to put up with it, old chap, I think is the message there from the Red Bull pit wall. 10 laps to go. Once the field are all bunched up, then Gasly's AlphaTauri is cleared, then all the lapped cars can unlap themselves. And the regulations have been changed since Abu Dhabi for obvious reasons, so that all lap cars will now be able to unlap themselves.
Come on, the safety car needs to go quicker in the straight. It gives him a big disadvantage by going slow like this.
Copy that.
Not here, because there's a car and there's marshals by the side of the track. Karun, down to you.
Yeah, just to clarify, Crofty, I was listening back and forth on the radio traffic between Verstappen and the pit wall, and let's be clear, he came out and said initially something was completely wrong. As we see, oh, look at that, Leclerc getting very close to the safety car there, clearly expecting it to be quicker down straight. He then talked about
Ricardo and Norris, Latifi and Hulkenberg. That's 6. And if anyone at race control needs a bit of help, hopefully they're listening. That's 6 race lapped cars this evening.
Yeah, they're not. We haven't seen anything even approach the Gasly car yet, have we, to clear it away? Hopefully that's happening quickly. He's right near, obviously, a service road, so they haven't got too far to go with it. As soon as they can lift it up. No, it's not going anywhere, is it?
No, that's still smoking away. Very hot indeed. If you're just joining us here in Bahrain, we are behind the safety car because of Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri catching fire. If you've missed the action so far, if you're a Sky Glass, Sky Cube customer, press your red button. You can watch highlights of the race alongside the live action, and hopefully we will get some live action to the flag, because there is a tantalising restart in prospect coming up for about 3 or 4 laps, I think, Martin, here.
And of course that's almost exactly where Romain Grosjean went through the fence, isn't it? Oh, that rather fiery crash. And so it looks like electric issues, doesn't it, there for the AlphaTauri, with the dash just going out like that. Although you could also say maybe it's turbo at the top end of the engine, but there's no smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe, so it looks electrical. But the clutch release has to work for up to 15 minutes. A little button you press so they can roll the car away, which they're now doing. They're now doing exactly that. They've got horrible steering lock on them, especially with these tyres on the front. But as they 7-point turn that to get it down the service road, we will be underway then.
George Russell picked up 3 places during the safety car period as well by getting a cheaper pit stop. So that's put him into the top 6. And there's a lot of cars that are going to really fancy their chances when we get racing here.
Yeah, and look at young Mick Schumacher up into the points as well.
Yeah, it's more difficult to steer with speed.
Copy that, Max.
Yeah, because the aero load obviously builds up dramatically. Ted, what can you tell us?
Oh, I don't know, Martin. I'm just getting my nerves back after all this talk about safety cars and unlapping cars. Not again, Crofty. You're giving me flashbacks.
Ted, lapped cars may now overtake the safety car.
Don't start with that.
And guess what, Ted? There are 6 of them.
You've
counted properly.
I'm traumatised. Don't do it again. Don't do it again. I've only just got over it. 14 weeks, I've only just got over it. Anyway, let's move
98
on.
days, Ted. That's all it's been.
Right. Mick Schumacher. So he has stayed out, as Martin correctly observes, stayed out, so not done an extra stop, whereas pretty much everybody else has. Is already on 13-lap old soft tyres. So it's a brave move from the Haas guys. Both Haas cars at the moment in the points. So he is going to come under pressure. Team radio.
2 seconds, Ted.
Max, from what we can see, the situation is stable, so nothing's getting worse, but it is what it is.
But it's not getting better.
We may have to live with it. If it becomes undrivable, then obviously you know the situation.
Well, I hope that means retire the car.
Yeah, so what, do we think he's just going to have to be muscle man to get it round the last few laps in any case? Yeah, so Mick Schumacher has having a go. They stayed out. They've got track position ahead of Yuki Tsunoda and Fernando Alonso, but both those drivers on new or new-ish tyres. So, yeah, it's going to be some tall order for Mick Schumacher to hang on to that P10, but he's going to give it a go.
So presumably the safety car is in at the end of this lap. Max Verstappen needs his inner Nigel Mansell now, and I think there's plenty of Nigel Mansell in Max Verstappen when it comes to cranking a bit of steering wheel on.
Could be right there.
It's you know, when it starts loading the aero up through some of these high-speed turns, like turn 12 or into turn 14 at the end of the lap, for example. Safety car is indeed in this lap. That rule didn't change. It is at the end of the next lap after the lapped runners. And by the way, calculating who are the lap runners is not the work of a moment. It's rather complex, especially when you read the regulation.
Yes, it is, and will all be automated in the future. Where I say I hope Max Verstappen retires the car, what I mean is I hope he doesn't carry on driving it when it's not in a very stable condition to do so. Charles Leclerc might have been thinking about a first win in Bahrain. He's now still in the position that he's been in for the whole race, where he's leading the race, but he has got them queuing up right behind him. Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, Kevin Magnussen, all going to be going for it right at the start here. Bernd Mailander will peel into the pits in a few corners' time, and we can get racing again.
There's so many stories to this restart. 2 Mercedes, nose to tail. Look at that. Perez on Sainz, Verstappen on Leclerc. Maybe Sainz on Verstappen as well if he's struggling to turn the steering wheel.
Exactly. We were 11 laps away from this becoming the first season opening race ever to be completed without a single retirement. And then Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri caught fire. And now the action is going to hot up here in Bahrain once again.
So they have to back up a little bit now, and Leclerc becomes effectively the safety car because they've got to let it get far enough out front to be in the pit lane before he bolts, and he will be trying to catch Max Verstappen out big time. No drag reduction system, of course, for 2 laps after a safety car. And this is Max's favourite trick, isn't it?
Yep.
Trying to hustle the guy who's about it, and he's left himself very tight on that last corner, actually, has Max.
And
so no wonder
helped.
the Ferrari disappeared.
It's not helped, and look, Sainz is right on the tail of Max Verstappen as they head down the straight.
15 зрителей, всем привет, всем приятного просмотра, гонка продолжается, сейфтикар уехал, если что, в чат пишите, отвечу всем, извините, что убрал звук, поехали дальше.
Perez almost almost collected by Lewis Hamilton, who was arriving at a rate of knots, but now it's Leclerc towards turn 4 from Verstappen. Then comes Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, Hamilton, Russell, and then Kevin Magnussen. Behind Magnussen, Bottas, Ocon, and Mick Schumacher on the verge of points for the first time in his Formula One career. Leclerc's got the restart done nicely as Tsunoda gets past Mick Schumacher and he drops out of the points. So, still with work to do for Mick Schumacher, still with work to do for Charles Leclerc, but first job, well done, still in the lead.
Yeah, so Max is, I think, clearly struggling with the steering loads of that car. We'll see how it is in turns 11, 12, 13, where you really need to crank a lot of steering in when it's working fine. So you can see then Leclerc building a gap. Sainz must fancy trying to make this a Ferrari 1-2. And the Mercedes then still in 5th and 6th, Hamilton, Russell.
Mick Schumacher under pressure from Fernando Alonso. Behind them comes Guan Yu Zhou in the Alfa Romeo. Alonso gets past Mick Schumacher and up into 11th place. He's lost a couple of places as young Mick on this first lap since the restart, as Leclerc now over 1.5 seconds clear of Max Verstappen, and Mick Schumacher's problems could go from bad to worse as Zhou Guan Yu pulls out to the right-hand side to try and get past into the final corners. Fastest lap of the race goes to Charles Leclerc, and it's helped him build a gap of over 1.5 seconds now. Verstappen in second, then comes Sainz, Perez under pressure from Hamilton, Magnussen just dropping back a bit behind George Russell, and right at the rear of that, there goes Zhou Guan Yu into the first corner, wheel to wheel with Mick Schumacher, two former F2 drivers giving it everything here as Mick Schumacher comes out ahead.
And crucially then, Leclerc 1.6 ahead of Verstappen. Verstappen still managing to handle whatever problems he's got at the steering wheel, and in fact was quicker than Sainz and Perez, much quicker actually on the previous lap. So Verstappen hanging on to that steering wheel extremely well, whatever his problems are.
Verstappen's problems could continue though when DRS starts, and at the moment he's not getting himself out of any DRS threat from Carlos Sainz behind him. Sainz, if he can stay within 1 second, will have an opportunity to get at the Red Bull.
After 2 laps, you're absolutely right, but we know how fast that Red Bull has been in a straight line. And these are the kind of corners where I thought Verstappen would struggle to turn if he's not got full power steering, but he's hanging on to it well, isn't he?
He certainly is, harvesting at the top of the hill and recharging the batteries on that Red Bull to give him that energy boost as he puts his foot flat to the floor down that straight, but he's not making any impression on the lead whatsoever. Now 2 seconds Leclerc ahead of Verstappen. Leclerc deserves the race win here, not just for what happened in 2019 when an engine problem caused him to lose the lead, but for the way he's coped tonight as well. When Verstappen's attacked him, Leclerc's come back and he's given it even more. Now DRS is enabled, that'll be on the run to turn 4. That'll help Lewis Hamilton in this battle with Sergio Perez. Perez could find himself in a spot of bother in a few moments time. Verstappen and Carlos Sainz as well. Sainz might get a bit of DRS, he's there or thereabouts with it. Hamilton has got DRS as he tries to chase Sergio Perez, who's out of DRS range in his battle with Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, there's not a lot of relative movement, is there, between them at the moment as they get up to speed. They've all got reasonably fresh tyres out front after the stop, and that wonderful view from the cockpit. Zhou Guan Yu heading then down towards turn 11 and making that move stick.
Making that move stick as Mick Schumacher just opened the door a little bit wider than he really would have wanted. Sad for Mick Schumacher, but I'm sure his chance will come to score points eventually, because the Haas looks like a car that could be doing so this season. Hamilton's got DRS behind Sergio Perez, but Perez has just gone a couple of tenths faster on this lap through the first sector. Sainz might be out of DRS range now with Max Verstappen. He's there or thereabouts.
So in the 42nd middle sector, every lap now, Verstappen's losing half a second to the Ferrari. So rather confirms that he's got those steering issues, because otherwise they've been pretty nip and tuck through there.
So let's see, no DRS for Carlos Sainz down the main straight. Hamilton's got it, but he's not closing in on Sergio Perez, who might be using his batteries to help the boost, but Sainz has closed right in on Verstappen into turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, Sainz looked easily within a second there, didn't he, as they came onto the pit straight.
It might have been through the detection zone. He didn't have it. He's certainly got it now. Verstappen is going to have that Ferrari looming large in his wing mirrors. And don't forget, last time Ferrari won in Formula One, it was also a 1-2 finish. Singapore 2019, Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen. Could they be on for not only ending their winless streak, but putting up a 1-2-2?
Hey, what's going on with the battery?
Battery fine.
No, it's not. I have no real... What the f*** is this?
Verstappen is losing his cool, and he thinks he's losing his energy charging and his battery as well, and he might be about to lose second place here as well. Leclerc leads, Carlos Sainz pulls out to the inside and overtakes Max Verstappen, and it's a Ferrari 1-2 here in Bahrain as Carlos Sainz moves up into second place. 46 races since they last won. Ferrari are 1-2 here.
We can see the issue, Max. It's not battery related.
What do you want me to do?
There's not a lot we can do.
And will Verstappen now be passed by his teammate Sergio Perez? Yes, he has been. And he's been passed by Hamilton, and he's been passed by Russell. And this, for the world champion, is certainly not the start he was anticipating. From all the highs in Abu Dhabi to the lows in Bahrain.
Okay, try to make it into the pit lane, please, Max.
Max Verstappen is out of the race. Charles Leclerc leads, Carlos Sainz second, Sergio Perez third, then comes Hamilton and Russell. And I tell you what, Lewis Hamilton might even end up on the podium here because he...
Все люди, которые голосовали за Ферстаппена, такие же, как я, болеют за него. Ферстаппен ушел на пит-стоп. Теперь он 19-й, там что-то, видимо, случилось на пит-стопе. Вот. Получается, сейчас Леклер с Сайнзом и Перезом займут лидирующие позиции. 22 человека на стриме, спасибо всем, что смотрите. Я включаю обратно звук. Цените.
Ted will get his eagle eye out and find out what's going on. I want to see Lewis Hamilton in that DRS behind Perez, because that now is a battle for the podium.
Yeah, well, Perez has gone through turn 11, still ahead. This is the moment Carlos Sainz managed to get past Max Verstappen. Was told by someone who knows their stuff in the paddock, this is Max Verstappen's championship to lose this year. I know there's a long way to go, but this is not the way he would have wanted to start it, not by any stretch of the imagination. Perez is about 6.5 tenths. Clear of Hamilton.
I'm losing power.
We've got 2 laps to go.
And he's now losing power too. So what's affected one Red Bull might be about to affect the other Red Bull. Hamilton closing in with DRS. Perez trying to harvest at the end of the straight. You can see the lights flashing on. Hamilton is now within striking distance of Sergio Perez.
2 laps to go. You've got this.
Get your elbows out, says Hugh Bird, his race engineer, as Sainz disappears around turn 4. Perez holds off Hamilton, but for how much longer? Because Karun Chandok, he must be thinking, Sergio, even before he could sense something in the car, well, if something's happened to my teammate, it might happen to me as well.
Yeah, at the moment, he seems to have just about enough. Unquestionably, he doesn't have the pace that he had earlier. Lewis needs to hang on within DRS zone. The trouble is that porpoising is clearly affecting Mercedes in the braking zone properly for turn 1. You can see Lewis has to be a bit more tentative. He can't attack the inside in the way we saw Max Verstappen doing, for example, earlier on this race. So we'll have to see if...
Meanwhile, out in front, Charles Leclerc, 5.5 seconds clear of his teammate Carlos Sainz. Martin Brundle is rushing down into Parc Ferme to interview the top 3. Will it be a Mercedes that's joining the Ferrari party? Hamilton's got DRS once again. 3 it's going to be. Surely it's going to be 2 Ferraris, but will it be a Red Bull or will it be a Mercedes that's joining the Ferrari party? Hamilton's got DRS once again down the straight. And can he get close enough to Sergio Perez? Not on this occasion. You can see the bumps and the porpoising there that is just unsettling the car into that first braking zone, and Perez has been spun round. Sergio Perez has lost it on turn 2. And Red Bull, who were looking at a decent points finish here in the last couple
Yeah, man.
but seen their other driver tumble out of the points. Hamilton, looking for damage limitation, has seen the damage to the Red Bull and is going to pick up another podium. This is incredible. And it was... There is nothing he could do about it whatsoever. But you can hear the roars of the crowd here and the delights from the fans in Bahrain as Lewis Hamilton, very popular man in these parts.
Shut down straight away. Pre-season favourites, Red Bull going home with 0 points. Kevin Magnussen in the top 5, Bottas in the top 6.
Absolutely incredible. And for this man, Charles Leclerc, who's won twice in Formula 1 before from pole, is going to win from pole again and start the season off with celebrations for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc wins the Bahrain Grand-Prix, and it is a 1-2 finish for the Scuderia. Carlos Sainz comes home in second. Lewis Hamilton adds to his podium tally. It's podium number 183 for Hamilton. He comes home in third. Behind them, George Russell on his debut for Mercedes finishes fourth. Kevin Magnussen, welcome back to...
Вот так и закончился спринт Формулы 1. В итоге Леклер первый, Сайнс второй, Хэмилтон третий, Рассел четвертый. Не успел. Да. В итоге команда Red Bull остается без очков, к сожалению.
Let's go! Let's go! Come on! That's exactly how we should start a season. Come on! 1-2 baby! 1-2! Yeah!
Sei un grande.
Volevamo lottare, Charles, hai lottato più di tutti, sei un campione, veramente, bravo, bravo.
Я считаю, это хорошее... Я считаю, это довольно хорошее начало для команды Феррари. Там все хорошо сыграли, и Леклер, и Сайнс. Две Феррари выиграли в этом спринте. Первая гонка сезона. К сожалению, команда Red Bull не заработала ни одного очка. Ну, это начало сезона. Надеемся, сезон будет насыщенный, классный, хороший. Главное, эмоциональный сезон. Ну, спасибо всем за просмотр. Ну, я пока что просто включу звук. Наслаждайтесь трансляцией. Если что, отвечу вам в чате.
Terrible season in 2020, but they bounced back.
2 seconds, Kareem.
I'm P2, good job. 1-2, nice job. What the start of the season.
Bravi tutti, bravi. Forza Ferrari. A difficult weekend for me, but we will come back stronger. Let the bad weekends be P2. Die.
Yeah, it was a difficult weekend, really, because, I mean, Sainz, he wasn't in the same league, was he, as Leclerc? Leclerc, 10, 12 seconds up the road, he was superb, unquestionably the driver of the day, and he's a proper championship contender now. Ferrari, right in this fight. This is what we wanted, Crofty. 3 teams in the fight, and we've got it.
Well, we have. Martin Brundle, he's a man who knows his stuff in F1. He said it would be a race of attrition, and that's what it proved to be right at the end. And this is going to be a tough result to take for Red Bull. It's a brilliant result and a brilliant night for Ferrari. And Charles Leclerc wins the opening race of the season. I'll give you the most pointless stat, Karun, that I'm going to come up with tonight.